The game of golf, a hobby and passion for many, yes. It's also big business in Indiana, driving some $2 billion into the Hoosier economy.
It accounts for over 23,000 jobs, 612 million in wages and salaries. I mean, it is big business without a doubt, and it's going really well right now.
For longtime Indiana Golf Executive Director Mike David, these are the glory days. The state's more than 400 courses filled with golfers, and a new $6.5 million headquarters and transformative Golf Hall of Fame under construction. A conversation about the impact of the business of golf in Indiana with Indiana Golf Hall of Famer Mike David on this edition of the Business and Beyond podcast. Hello and welcome to the Business and Beyond podcast presented by PNC. I'm Gary Dick. Mike David grew up in Columbus, Indiana, in a family dedicated to golf.
My dad introduced me to the game. He played at Otter Creek, and I would go out to Otter Creek when I was little, and I'd basically ride on his pull cart. And how his clubs were not bent, I don't know. But then, back in those days, I'd probably pull out a 5-iron and pretend I was playing Army or something like that. And occasionally I'd hit a few shots, but that's how I got connected to the game and just really loved it.
35 years later, he is a key driver in pushing the game and the business of golf forward in Indiana. And I'm pleased to be joined on the podcast this week by a very busy guy. Indeed, Mike David, the executive director of Indiana Golf, has had that position for several decades now, really entrenched in the golf game, the golf industry, if you will, in Indiana. Mike, thanks for joining me.
Gary, thanks for having me. Happy to be here.
Lots we can talk about. This is a busy time of year. Obviously, we're in the middle of summer. In golf, golf is a business. And I think it may be overlooked in a state like Indiana. But golf is big business. I know you did an economic impact study a couple of years ago that really kind of underscored the impact of golf in Indiana.
Yeah, Gary, from when I started 35 years ago to today, I think the industry has changed significantly. I mean, to a lot of people, 35 years ago was kind of a hobby, but it is really big business today. And as you mentioned, what we found out in that economic impact study is it's a $2 billion industry in Indiana. It accounts for over 23,000 jobs, 612 million in wages and salaries. I mean, it is big business without a doubt, and it's going really well right now.
Talk about that and talk about golf in Indiana. I think, to me, golf is very much an underrated thing in Indiana. I mean, there are some great courses, a lot of golf professionals around the state doing really great work. You and others in Indiana Golf building the game of golf. Talk about golf in Indiana, the number of courses, the number of public access courses that are here that are really first class.
I do think golf here flies under the radar sometimes. And I think that we've accomplished a lot here in Indiana because we're one of the few states that have a joint working relationship between the pros and the amateurs. So that's not normally the case. But in Indiana, there's been this cooperative effort between the Indiana Golf Association and the Indiana PGA since 1972. That led to the formation of our foundation. It's led to just a lot of other positive things happening here in Indiana that that some people may overlook for a state that maybe not known as kind of a golf destination, so to speak. But no, Gary, as you mentioned, we do have a lot of quality golf courses, and there's a lot of interest in people coming from outside the state to play those courses. But for those that reside here in Indiana, 82% of our golf courses here in the state are public access courses. And when you look at the cost for those courses compared to what the national average is, we're well under the national average. So, I think the overall theme for golf in Indiana is it's very accessible and it's very affordable, which are two pretty positive components, I think.
You mentioned that $2 billion plus impact. Certainly golf has an impact on tourism. Folks come in to play some of these great courses. And I know there have been efforts and maybe continue to be efforts to promote the game of golf in unique ways. The Pete Dye Golf Trail, I know, is one of them. Talk about that concept, that idea, how that's going, and what the potential could be for something like that.
Yeah, it's funny. I just had a conversation with a couple people from the state tourism department within the last week, and the Dye Trail is kind of spawned out of what Alabama's done with the Robert Trent Jones Trail, and certainly the Pete Dye courses we have here in Indiana are a draw. But my conversation with them was we've got other golf courses that are a draw as well, and you look at places like the Warren course up at Notre Dame or Prairie View or Otter Creek in Columbus. We went through probably 15 or 16 courses that we listed, and I think all of those are destination courses. And I think if you package them with 2 or 3 other courses in the area, I think it's very appealing to people from Kentucky, Illinois, Michigan, Missouri, Ohio. I definitely think that we see a decent amount of tourism-related money being brought in from golf, but I think the potential is there to do even more.
As you look at the evolution of golf in Indiana, and as you mentioned, you've been in that role for 30 plus years, you've seen a lot. Talk about kind of the ups and downs, if you will, the building boom, COVID, all the different things that have impacted golf, and how the game has, the business of golf in Indiana has kind of endured those changes.
Yeah, I mentioned, it's probably better than ever right now. And you hate, and I've said this multiple times, you hate to give credit to a pandemic for anything positive, but it has had a dramatic positive effect on the game of golf, not just here in Indiana, but nationwide. It was one of the few things we could do for several months. And it brought new people to the game. It brought people back to the game. And while I don't know that demand is going to continue at the pace that it has been the last couple of years, I think it's going to stay ahead of pre-pandemic numbers. And I think that bodes well for golf courses everywhere, bodes well for the sport, because I think people are finding that, it's a good use of time. You're outside, you're in nature, you have the ability to spend 4 hours with someone and get to know them better. I mean, a lot of business takes place on the golf courses. So, I think the game's going great. And I don't see that changing anytime in the near future, which obviously is a huge positive for those of us that work in the industry.
Right. How do things like, I think about Top Golf, which those venues do exceptionally well. I know the one in Fishers continues to really draw big crowds. Does that have an impact on the game in any way?
Yeah, I think the definition of playing golf has expanded over the last few years. I mean, I know the USGA, the PGA of America have all kind of taken a different approach that you don't have to go out and play 18 holes of golf to be considered a golfer, right? And Top Golf is a great example of that. I mean, you go there and you look at that crowd, and it's not the crowd you see at Crooked Stick on a Saturday morning. I mean,
Right.
it's a different crowd, but you know what? They've got golf clubs in their hands. They're hitting golf balls. They're having a good time. And who knows where that introduction to the sport may lead. It may never take them to a golf course. And if it doesn't, that's okay, because they're still getting a taste for the game. But I do think logically a percentage of those Top Golf players, Back Nine Sports, which is on the south side of Indy, 5-Iron, which is an indoor simulator location, I do think a percentage of those golfers are going to move to the golf course, and that's good for the sport.
Developing the future of the game obviously is important, getting more young people engaged. And I know, and I saw some numbers, and to me, they're pretty eye-popping in terms of youth development, the First Tee program, those things that you and others have really led here in Indiana have really grown. Talk about youth development and getting young people engaged in the game of golf.
Yeah, we're really fortunate here in Indiana, Gary. In the 35 years I've been here, our golf courses, our PGA professionals have always been completely supportive of junior golf and developing more golfers. And, honestly, I think right now, the way the industry is, it would be pretty easy to overlook that. I mean, because most courses have all the players they need. They really, there's not a huge need to continue to grow the game as far as short term. But that's not the approach that people have taken, and I think that's good. That the focus is still on junior golf, on providing more activities. Our First Tee program here in Indiana, it's one of 7 or 8 statewide First Tee chapters around the country. We're in 19 different communities across the state. We're offering First Tee programming at 59 golf courses. We're in over 330 elementary and middle schools with First Tee programs. So in 2023, we literally reached 112,000 people or 1,000
Wow.
kids. So yeah, the impact that's having is obviously significant. I mean, getting golf clubs in kids' hands, getting them out on the golf course and showing them that it's another viable opportunity for them. And it's a sport that obviously they can play a lifetime, unlike a lot of other sports.
Yeah, talk about the First Tee program in terms of what it's all about, the programming. I know it's about teaching life lessons through golf, I think is kind of the basic description, but talk about the programming and how it works.
Yeah, so that's exactly right, Gary. It's a youth development program. It's been around for 26 years. It was born from a combination of the PGA of America, the PGA Tour, the LPGA, the USGA, and Augusta National Golf Club, and now it really resides under the PGA Tour Foundation. And the PGA Tour has a strong interest in First Tee. So First Tee is, as you said, it's a youth development organization, teaches life lessons through the game of golf. And it goes about it in a couple different ways. One way is basically our outreach programs, and those can be through Parks and Rec departments, through YMCAs, through community centers. We, as I mentioned, have been very successful here in Indiana through the National School Program. So it's offering golf through the PE teachers in elementary and middle schools. And then the other kind of route for First Tee is what's called the life skills experience. And that's green grass at the golf course locations, 6 to 8 week programs where the kids are getting obviously a higher dose of golf, but a higher dose of those character building skills as well. But it's a phenomenal program teaching, not just golf, but those other life lessons that go along with it.
I want to ask you, I don't want to put you on the spot, but you mentioned the PGA, and it made me think about the ongoing, I guess you call it a feud, PGA and Live. How does that affect the game? To me, editorial comment, I find Live unwatchable. I don't care for it, but there are those who do, and it's an ongoing thing. What's your view on how that's impacting the game of golf?
Yeah, I mean, I think, first of all, it's important to note that there's a difference between the PGA Tour and the PGA of America. I think a lot of people, don't understand that there is a difference. The PGA of America are 30,000 men and women who are running golf operations around the country. They're giving lessons. They're developing the next generation of players, et cetera. The PGA Tour are obviously the guys you see on the TV on the weekends. But there is a lot of connection between the two. The PGA of America gets a lot of funding from the PGA Tour, and the PGA Tour's well-being definitely impacts the PGA of America and the 41 PGA sections. So you're talking to a person who I mentioned earlier, the cooperation we have here in Indiana between various entities has really gotten us to where we are today. So when I look at the division in golf at the highest level, yeah, that is definitely frustrating. I mean, you would certainly like to see that worked out. And it's funny that Seth Waugh, the CEO of the PGA, have said a couple different times, never has the game itself been so strong, but the highest level of the game been so fragmented. And I think that's where we are right now. So, certainly hopeful that that's worked out here soon and all of the best players can be back on the same stages more frequently. I think that's good for the game, without a doubt.
How about developing, and you mentioned developing golf professionals and those who work in the industry. And again, it is an industry. You've got Purdue, and I know they've got programs with turf management and those types of things. What's the status and what's the pipeline of everybody talks about workforce now and attracting talent. How about attracting talent in the golf game? How's that going?
Yeah, that's really been a major focus of the PGA of America the last couple of years, and that is recruiting, trying to get the next generation of golf professionals, because honestly, a lot of them are getting close to retirement age, and you need some more in the pipeline to come in and fill those roles. And Gary, in all honesty, there were several years there where if I was talking to an individual, I would have a hard time really saying, yeah, you should get into golf. You should take this route because, there was a lot of competition. There weren't enough jobs. There was kind of a supply and demand issue. We're to that point now that I could look a younger person in the eye, or anyone for that matter, and say, you know what, if you want to get into golf, there is a future for you, because maybe it's as a head pro, maybe it's as a sales rep, maybe it's as a teaching professional, or maybe it's as an organizational leader in some fashion. But the pipeline is there. We actually, our associate number of PGA members is way up the last couple of years. So there is the interest in getting into the game, and the recruiting efforts, I think, that the PGA has in place and that we're doing here at a local level as well, I think are paying off.
I want to get to a break here in a second, but I wanted to mention before we do that, this year in terms of recognition in Indiana, 3 PGA award winners, right? Which is a big number.
It's huge. 3 national PGA award winners, which in the last 30 plus years, we've had 4 total award winners, and we're going to have 3 recognized here in 2024. Crystal Morse from the Legends down in Franklin is the National Player Development Award winner. Rob Kuntz, who's at the Die Course down at French Lick. You mentioned you were just down there, Gary. Yep. Rob is the National Resort Merchandiser of the Year. And then the epitome of PGA awards, the National Golf Professional of the Year, is going to Tony Pancake from Crooked Stick. Wow. And all 3 of those individuals are well-deserved, but they'll all be recognized at the PGA annual meeting in November in Michigan.
Much more ahead with Mike David, the executive director at Indiana Golf, including an update and some details on a major project, a new headquarters, Hall of Fame, really a big project here in Indianapolis that is well underway. We'll talk about that and a lot more when the Business and Beyond podcast returns.
At PNC Bank, we're committed to making a difference in the lives of our customers and communities by helping them move forward financially. As a Main Street bank, we try to do right by our customers with every encounter. Our local teams offer personalized financial advice to help guide you in making the best decision. We're proud to be part of your community. PNC Bank. See how we can make a difference for you at pnc.com. Copyright 2022, the PNC Financial Services Group, Inc., all rights reserved.
And welcome back to the Business and Beyond podcast presented by PNC. My guest this week is Mike David. Mike's the executive director of Indiana Golf, the governing body for golf in Indiana. And Mike talked a lot about the strength of the game in Indiana, really at its peak. I know you indicated in terms of where things stand now. And that includes, I would say, in terms of momentum, a major project that I know you and others have been intimately involved with for a number of years, and that's a new headquarters at Fort Harrison State Park.
Gary, it seems like this project's been going on a really, really long time. It's actually been probably 3 or 4 years, but we're very excited. We broke ground in early June on the new Pete and Alice Dye Indiana Golf Center, which is going to be located at the fort. The first phase of construction is going to be a 13,000 square foot building that will house our administrative offices for all of Indiana Golf, as well as the Indiana Golf Hall of Fame. And then the second phase of construction, which will probably start sometime in 2025, will be a small teaching academy that we'll have on the driving range at the fort. So eventually we can run first tee programming, we can run PGA Hope programming, et cetera, out at the fort. So we're very excited about the partnership. We think the fort is a great location for us. Obviously, it's a Pete Dye redesign. It's an Indiana State Park, so the connection with the state of Indiana is great for us. But real excited to be moving forward with that project.
A great facility, but beyond that, what can this mean to golf in Indiana to have that, a very visible presence, a great facility to kind of promote the game of golf in Indiana?
Yeah, I just think it's a lot of exposure. I mean, that's what we've seen since we first made the announcement that we were going to the fort, and then we announced our capital campaign, and then the groundbreaking. I think just more exposure throughout the state than probably we've ever gotten before. So I think that's a positive. I think we're going to be in a great location. People are going to know we're there. We're gonna see a lot more people come through our doors than we have before. And they'll have the opportunity to learn about Indiana golf because our new Hall of Fame is not just going to be a bunch of glass display cases with trophies. It's going to be interactive, and it's really going to tell the history of golf in Indiana and recognize those that were a part of it. But I'm really excited about what the interior of this building is going to have, as well as the location and everything else that goes along with it.
You talk about the Hall of Fame. You are a member of the Indiana Golf Hall of Fame, I think inducted in 2021, and golf is your life, really, right? Grew up in Columbus, and golf was really, part of the fabric of your growing up. Talk about golf in Columbus, playing with your dad, and growing up in the game, really.
Yeah, it's been a big part of my life for a long time. My dad introduced me to the game. He played at Otter Creek, and I would go out to Otter Creek when I was little, and I'd basically ride on his pull cart. And how his clubs were not bent, I don't know. But then I back in those days, I'd probably pull out a 5-iron and pretend I was playing Army or something like that. And occasionally I'd hit a few shots, but that's how I got connected to the game. And just really just loved it. Played collegiately at Ball State. And then, when I got out of school, I didn't want to go the golf professional route, but I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. And the old saying is it's not what you know, it's who you know. That has been the story of my life. I was connected to a couple of good friends of mine who did go the golf professional route, and they were aware that there was an opening at the Indiana Golf office at the time, and one thing led to another, and I got the job. And I couldn't be happier where I am, and the job has changed dramatically over the 35 years, without a doubt. But I feel like I've grown with it, and we, Indiana Golf, have grown over the years too. So yeah, thrilled with where I am and what we've been able to accomplish, without a doubt.
You mentioned Ball State, and I know you had some all conference, all America recognition there. So a very successful collegiate career. As you think back, when did you begin to think that you were going to be pretty decent at the game of golf? Thinking back to the days of using a 5-iron as playing Army to really getting more serious about it. When did it start to kick in?
I think probably early teens. And Gary, I don't know if it was because I decided I was good at golf or I was just bad at other sports. So it might have been golf by default. But no, I mean, you start to have a little bit of success and you start to have fun with the game. And I just kind of knew at that point that, I wasn't going to be a major leaguer. I wasn't going to play in the NBA. So golf looked like an attractive future sport for me. And yeah, I mean, it's taken me to places and provided me opportunities that, I never dreamt were an option, but it's certainly treated me really well.
What is key or advice, I guess, you might give to young people who are thinking about, playing a little bit of golf here and there and, getting serious about it? Are there things, because golf, such a mental game in so many ways, and young people, old people can get frustrated with it very easily. But as young people are developing, what are things they might want to keep in mind to maybe keep on that path to continuing to play the game? Yeah,
first of all, I think you have to keep in mind that with any sport, only a small percentage are going to make it to the highest level. So I think you have to have very realistic expectations. And I think you also, as a young person, you have to do it because you want to do it, not because someone else is pushing you to do it. And I think that's probably true with any path you take. But, and then finally, I mean, I think it has to be fun. I mean, I may not play well every time I go out to the golf course, but when I look back at it, I'm still having a good time. Even today, I look forward to the next time I'm going to play the game, and I love being outside and I love competing. So I think those are the kind of the things you have to keep in focus.
As you look at what's next for Indiana golf and the game of golf in Indiana, what do you see kind of taking place? Obviously, we've talked about the new headquarters, the Golf Center, Hall of Fame, a lot of exciting things going on there. Where do you see as growth opportunities, or where the game of golf is going in Indiana?
Well, I don't know about where necessarily it's going in Indiana, but one growth opportunity that we've started getting involved with more recently is adaptive golf. We've hosted 3 adaptive championships. We actually were selected as one of 6 sites for the USGA last year for their qualifiers for the National Adaptive Championship. And we're starting to run some adaptive clinics that kind of go along with our PGA Hope programming. But I think getting the word out to stroke survivors, to those that have lost an arm or a leg, to those that are blind, just to let them know that golf is a viable opportunity for them. To see the participants in that adaptive championship is inspirational. I mean, to watch them and see the disabilities they're overcoming, and they're out there competing, they're having a good time. It's very fulfilling. And I think we can do more, and we want to do more in that area without a doubt. And I also think that we can get more women involved in the game. It's better than it used to be, but I still think there's a little bit of an intimidation factor for women when it comes to coming into the game of golf. And I think we need to try to continue to get over those hurdles, because I think we need to be as accessible as we possibly can to as many as we possibly can.
Mike David is the executive director of Indiana Golf. Mike, really appreciate you taking the time to join us. Congratulations on your continued success, and really look forward to checking out the progress and ultimately the opening of the new Indiana Golf Center, the Hall of Fame. Very exciting stuff.
Thank you, Gary. Always great talking to you.
All right. And thank you for joining us on this edition of the Business and Beyond podcast presented by PNC. It's a weekly conversation with achievers in business, sports, entertainment, and beyond. And you can download all of our episodes, getting close to 200 episodes now, and catch Indiana business news 24/7. All you have to do is go to InsideIndianaBusiness.com. I'm Gary Dick. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time.